Everything seems to be working.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I didn't turn that on.
Did I turn on? Maybe I accidentally hit the button. Anyways, I think we're live now.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha. Oh, if it's
Uh,
recording, should we stop that so that whatever version gets saved on the, because you guys save these, right?
yeah.
So that
We
it doesn't,
should. Let me just go to the recording here if I can find it.
I can see the,
Pause. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our new season of GeoPro Talks. I'm happy to say that I've several new folks that are joining us today at GeoPro, and we'll be introducing them in a second. We've got quite a series of events lined up for 2024, and equally interesting, we started these talks in 2017, and we've now produced over 175 GeoPro talks, and we're still going strong. So appreciate you guys joining us today. Let's get on with our introductory session for 2024. So I'd like you to meet our team at GeoPro. First off, I'll introduce Ryder Zafgilia. Ryder isn't able to join us today, unfortunately, but he's the guy that founded GeoEnviroPro over a decade ago. It's been going on for quite a while now. Ryder's got over 35 years of experience doing environmental site investigation, characterization, risk assessment, and remediation. Next, I'm just going to go through clockwise here. There's a picture of me. I'm Guy Patrick, your host today. I've been doing environmental consulting since 1981, and I think my strength is probably lies in contaminant hydrogeology, and I really like being a part of GeoPro, being able to share some of my my thoughts and experiences with you. Next to the right is Scott Steer. He's our in-house risk assessment expert. He heads up at a company called Steer Environmental, based in Nelson, British Columbia. So Scott's been involved in environmental risk assessment now for a couple of decades, running his own company and doing a lot of work across British Columbia, amongst other places. Next, moving along, we have Pete Craig. Pete, why don't you say a couple words about who you are and where you are?
Yeah, I'm currently in Regina, but I did about 15 years in consulting, working in the US, Ontario, BC, across the country, and here Canada. But better part of the last decade, I've been in contracting, and I work quite a bit in looking at mergers and acquisitions data in the environmental sector, so we can put a little business spin on some of what we do. But Guy, do you want to introduce Zara?
Sure. And Zara, again, she isn't able to join us today. Zara is based in Kamloops, British Columbia. She has over a decade of environmental consulting experience with a couple of major environmental consulting firms. She brought that expertise. Pardon?
Well, I think it's
Well,
material that she's also involved in waste management. If you need somebody who understands the ins and outs of handling contaminated soil, Zara is front and center.
That's right. So she moved on from environmental consulting. In Kamloops, she manages a major landfill in the interior of British Columbia, and it's quite a taxing project she's taken on. So that's why she is able to join us today, but we'll be seeing more of her in the future. Ian Hers, who was going to join us, but he's had some important business come up. Ian is our soil vapor expert. He developed guidance for not only British Columbia, CCME federal guidance, and also in some U.S. states. He's on the ITRC Council advising on soil vapor and LNAPL investigations. Ian has over 35 years of experience. Let's see here. Anyways, next we have Tanya. Tanya, you're joining us today.
Yes. Hi. I'm Tanya Shanoff. I have about 25 years of environmental consulting experience all over Canada. I work predominantly with the federal government these days and with oil and gas companies. I'm situated in Ontario, but was in BC practicing for many, many years and know a lot of folks through my years there in British Columbia. And I'm excited to be part of the team.
All right, thanks, Tanya. And now we don't have the headshot in, although we've recently received one. Our next speaker, Steve Boyce, our next GeoPro guy.
Yeah,
Steve,
yeah.
tell us
Thanks
about
very
you.
much. Sure. I'm a principal and managing partner at Active Earth Engineering. So I'm general environmental consulting firm. My specialty is also contaminated sites management, but as well general environmental project management, environmental permitting, soil disposal, including land-based and disposal at sea. And I take care of a fair bit of kind of hiring and operations management within our firm. So I'm really excited to join the team. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. And I just want to point out when you look at the team we've got at GeoEnviroPro, we are covering a lot of the bases in this industry, from soil, groundwater, soil vapor, site characterization, risk assessment, environmental remediation, permitting, management, soil handling, soil management. We've got all these experts that we pulled together here that all want to share their experiences, which makes this a really exciting time for us.
But Guy, would you be happy if members of the community volunteered to put on new talks and introduce new topics?
Pete is good for his rhetorical questions. Yes, and that's part of what we want to do today is get your input and feedback and let you know that we are always looking for people that would like to share some of their experiences with us on GeoEnviroPro and GPro Talks. All you have to do is send us a short note and we'll get back to you, and we can work out a time and schedule and help you put together a presentation to deliver. On that note, by the way, our website and our email, info@geoenviropro.com, we're always there to help you out. So what's happening in 2024? Well, these GeoPro Talks are going to continue, of course, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I guess it'll be 1 p.m. Eastern. Hey, Tanya, our Ontario connection. And as I mentioned, we're always looking for interesting and new ideas and talk to give on talks. March 7th, we are bringing back our Introduction to Contaminated Sites. This is a 3-hour webinar, series of lecturettes and experts from GeoPro, where we cover the basics of contaminated sites and the contaminated site legacy. We talk about why we're doing what we do, overview of the regulations, an overview of investigation and remediation. And it gives you an insight to what we do and how we do it, and the things we look for and the things you look for when you're looking at a contaminated site or reviewing some of the reports from contaminated sites. So it's really directed at not only environmental consultants, but also persons in the regulatory community and in the environmental industry to give you an overview of what's happening. Now that 3-hour webinar, well, I find you can sign up on our website. I think it's there's a fee. I think it's $125 for the full webinar, but there's discounts that are applied if you're a GeoPro member. So please check out our website on that. If you want a much more involved program on contaminated sites, we're again offering the Contaminated Site Fundamentals course from investigation through closure. This is going to begin on April 9th. We'll be doing every Tuesday for 7 weeks. And then on Fridays, we call it a tutorial discussion session. So we have lecturettes and key concepts on the Tuesdays, and then further discussion and walkthrough assignments on the Friday. And these sessions go for about 4 hours each. So if you're new to the contaminated sites industry, you got a couple years under your belt, or you're a regulator that wants to understand intimately what consultants do and how to review their work and how to understand how to pull all this information together so you can better understand the sites you're dealing with, please consider that course. And again, details are on our website. And then, as with last year in November, we had our Remediation Now workshop on soil management. I'll call it an annual event. I mean, GeoPro and historically GeoEnviroLogic, we've always put on annual conferences, usually with updates on what's happening with the contaminated site regulation in British Columbia, working with local regulators and provincial regulators. And this year, 2023, we moved into talking about soil management as a hot topic, not only here in BC, but also in Ontario and other provinces, how we manage excess soils has become a big deal. Next fall, I expect it'll still be a big deal, but on the general theme of remediation now, we'll be bringing that again. So stay tuned for that. A few highlights for you that aren't aware of GeoPro Talks. As I said, we started in 2017. And what does this mean? This means we now have a huge library of recordings. Over 175 topics have been covered, which is pretty phenomenal, actually. I mean, we're running as long as many major CBC TV shows, if you want to look at it that way. I like to look at it that way. We're not a front page challenge yet, but we're working on it. So our average attendance in 2023 has been about up to 300, well, about 300 on average register each week for our GeoPro Talks. And of those 300, about 200 have been watching live. I dare say this one is probably a lower attendance. Our kickoffs are always lower. I don't want to go on about that, but we're glad that you're able to join us today to hear about some of this stuff. Our record attendance, I'm just going to skip a couple slides here. Our record attendance was actually set by these 3 talks in 2023. Laura Paul with Thurber and Carrie Dow with Legacy Environmental last March delivered a talk on new guidance in British Columbia for potential contaminants of concern and how to select these things. So this was a BC-centric talk, but it's a topic that's really fundamental to contaminated sites. How do you know what contaminants will be of concern based on what you understand of the historical information you have for a property? What are the hot chemicals you should be watching out for and why? So that was a very popular topic. We had well over 500 people register for that one. And the next most popular, again, close to 500 people, was Scott Steer, our GeoEnviroPro guy, did an introduction to environmental risk assessment. So obviously that's a hot topic for people trying to get an overview of what actually happens in, I'll call it the black box of risk assessment. It's obviously a topic of concern to a lot of folks, understanding how what this is all about and how you apply it to contaminated sites. And our third most popular talk by Rusto Martinka, he's actually with the Ministry of Environment Climate Change Strategy in British Columbia. I believe he's based, pardon me, Rusto, but I recall here in Terrace, British Columbia, up north. And Rusto gave an interesting talk on permitting aspects related to groundwater. Well, groundwater aspects in permit applications, how you handle the groundwater issue when you're applying for permits. It sounded a little esoteric, but it's very popular because it's an issue for a lot of people in this province and probably in a lot of other provinces too. So with all those GeoPro talks, we do have a library of these talks, which you can find at geoenviropro.thinkific.com. I'm not sure if I'm not going to click on this, but it'll take you right to the link. And you can see all the courses and talks that are recorded and available to you. I think most of them are given at a fee. And again, I just want to stress, if you're a GeoPro member, corporate member, or annual individual member, you can access all these talks. Scroll through that library and see some of these things. They're worth having a sit down and listen to. We also have been working on videos. I think I shared this one with you a few months ago. Our promotion video.
Everyone. I'm Guy Patrick, and I'm here to welcome you to another GeoPro Talks. We're going to have an exciting discussion.
That sounds really interesting, Guy. Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to this talk.
Isn't that cool? But now let's get into another one that I call it more interesting, something that we've been working on recently. We're taking some of our key past talks and we're working with a firm in BC to use artificial intelligence to sort of strip them down into a 2 or 3 minute video so that you can actually watch it and see if it's something that you find interesting. So whether you want to commit to the full 20 or 30 minutes watching the full talk. So let's have a look at this one. This is one a short version created by AI on a talk I gave on environmental forensic chemistry.
Hello, chemistry enthusiasts. Welcome to GeoEnviroPro's discussion on environmental forensic chemistry with a focus on recalcitrant compounds, including PCBs, PAHs, dioxins, and furans. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to join our free half-hour GeoPro Talks, weekly webinars on environmental topics, and to access recordings of past webinars, like the one presented in this short video. PCBs, also known as polychlorinated biphenyls, consist of two benzene rings with
Guy,
varying
that's a
numbers
really
of
artificial
terrible
chlorines.
rendering of you, man.
By varying the number
I was
and
just
position
gonna
of the
say,
chlorines on the rings,
that doesn't look
we can
anything
have
like
up to
me.
209
But
variations.
so I don't know if people are aware that the YouTube channel is up and that we're actually posting
The
videos
terms
already,
of the
right?
world include
We could,
ferrochlor, a
I mean, this
trade
could be
name
a more
indicating the
convenient
number of
path for
carbon
people than the
atoms and
website.
percentage of chlorine in the product,
That's
and
right. I'm going to stop
homologs,
this here, and
which
I'm just going to
categorize
point out.
groups.
So I've given a link here to YouTube. This goes right to our YouTube channel. So www.youtube.com, and then at GeoEnviroPro training/videos, and that'll take you to these clips. We have a few on. We're working on a few more. They're kind of interesting just to have a look through and see what you think. So I actually encourage you to have a look at these and give us some feedback if you think these are kind of useful, something you can actually look at and read or share with your colleagues. I think they're kind of useful, but they're kind of cool, but we'll see. So now we're going to move on to part B of our presentation now. What would you like us to cover? We have a lot of talks lined up already. I'll just say the one that comes to my mind actually is we've had him on before, Andrew Cohen, Dr. Andrew Cohen in New Jersey. He's really big on I guess visualizations of key concepts in groundwater hydrogeology and contaminant hydrogeology. So he likes to share his experiences. And a recent experience of Andrew's was that he actually went over working with a not-for-profit organization to Morocco, looking at hands-on, looking at water supply issues in rural parts of Morocco. And he had a whole bunch of takeaways from his experience that he wants to share with us. So stay tuned on January 31st for Andrew Cohen's talk. So the purpose of this slide here is please use the chat. If there's hot topic, I just listed a bunch of talks here: climate change, contaminated sites investigation, policy regulations, innovations in remediation, mine permitting, environmental impact assessment, risk assessment, others. Please throw in your thoughts here now, and while we sit here, we'll take note of what's happening on the Q&A and the chat here.
So Andrew Bittner wins the prize. He's first in the Q&A with actually some really relevant stuff, looking for hydrology, K-tests, Aquasolve, groundwater modeling, a little bit of those focus areas that are close to your heart, Guy.
Well, I want to say, especially the hydrogeology. Honestly, I know this as I'll call myself a hydrogeologist. I mean, it's hard to actually go to university and get a degree in hydrogeology. It's usually put under the guise of environmental engineering or earth sciences and geology. But that is an issue that in order to deal with contaminated sites, I've said this over and over again, you need a good grounding in a lot of the fundamental sciences. And one of the keys is hydrogeology. And honestly, a lot of practitioners don't have a good grounding in that. So I think that's a really good comment. Michelle has typed in situ, ex situ remediation. So Pete, that's something up your alley. What do you think about topics on remediation?
Yeah, so we should follow up and dive into details because there's a huge amount that's going on in that subsector and very easy to bring in some of the leading practitioners in Canada. That's actually one of the reasons that soil event in November worked out pretty well is we had in the in-situ side, we had Bruce Tunnicliffe from Vertex, and then on the ex-situ soil washing side, we had Peter Reed from GRT, which is a soil recycling plant in BC. Liz Murray's in for binding agents on chloride contamination. Oh, but the regulatory dimensions. So regulatory, I like regulatory as a topic as well. Guy, like how do we get maximum interest areas out of our viewer base and then suck them into helping us pick the right speakers and get the right targeting?
Well, I don't know, Pete. that's something we'd like to hear from our audience. Let me just see here. I'm trying to look at my slide deck here. Here, why don't we try some? Why don't we try seeing if our audience can use this poll everywhere thing? You can see on your screen here. There's a HTTPS pollef.com. Guy Patrick 892, and then there's this QR code. So if you take your cell phone. I think a lot of these cell phones now, whether they're Androids or iPhones, I believe if you take your phone and put the camera on the QR code there and then click, it'll take you directly to our poll. So I'm going to ask you all to do that. While you're doing that, I did want to hear from Tanya, who's joined GeoPro very recently. Do you have any thoughts on topics you think would be of interest to our audience out there that joins us, and maybe new people that want to join? What's happening out there?
Well, I see Lee Bosco's added PFAS and air, soil, and groundwater, and I think PFAS is always a great one. It's very much, although no longer necessarily an emerging contaminant, it is certainly an expensive pain in the rear for a lot of our clients and folks we deal with. It's a very expensive laboratory analysis. It's a very expensive remediation, and a lot of current remediation and risk management approaches being developed every day, additional PFAS parameters being identified by the labs, new guidelines, guidance, regulations, standards worldwide being developed on an ongoing basis. So that's a great one. I think lots of interest there. Another one is climate change, climate risk, and how it impacts contaminated sites. It's certainly, for our friends who work in northern climates, let's say, northern BC or in the Arctic, how they design remediation, risk management going forward, and the impacts that the very rapidly changing climate is going to have on those approaches and the stability potentially in terms of long-term monitoring and risk mitigation. I think that's a really interesting one that keeps coming up regularly as well.
And we can see on this is on the poll everywhere, where we have the question, what would you like?
Oh,
us to cover?
remediation's the big one.
It is.
I'm
not a
not contributing.
surprise.
I am not in the poll.
There you go.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Pete's probably just sitting there typing and typing and typing the same word over and over again.
Yeah.
but
And sustainability, like that's another big one too. It looks like it's one of the bigger ones because it's that's a big topic, right? Greening our remediation approaches, greening our risk management measures, that kind of approach, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, really making decisions today, as we like to say, that don't have a negative impact on the future. That's a really important area of our business that is evolving, growing, and new guidance and approaches are coming in, as well as innovative ways to do things to try and reduce that footprint, reduce those impacts for the future.
So I just have to interject here. Groundwater is now going neck and neck with remediation.
There you go.
Everywhere.
I love to see that. As a big hydrogeology nerd, that warms my heart.
Steve,
it's a
Steve, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah,
you've done you've done some excellent work at disposal at sea. You've covered, I think, you've covered a lot of stuff that's not yet popping up, but should, because it's impacting projects right now.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot happening with soil movement and soil management in BC. Yeah. The tension between land-based disposal, ocean-based disposal, smart reuse of materials. I know there are lots of talks and lots of resources being generated, but certainly that's a hot topic. And then I just wanted to point out that someone has mentioned that the chat window itself is blocked for people to put chats in the Zoom chat. But this poll is kind of where we'd like you to throw your thoughts on the topics you'd like us to address. And then also the Q&A window does work in the Zoom. So if you've got questions, you can be using that as well. So Richard mentioned sustainability and efficiency in site remediation. I think that's an awesome topic, like this idea of Are we causing more harm than good in some cases? When we go out and we run a whole bunch of equipment in order to, marginally improve a localized impact, is that actually better? I think it's a great question. And then another topic that's near and dear to me that I think we're going to see lots of movement on in the next year is AI. And how can AI be assisting in our investigation planning, in our remediation planning, and I think also our report writing. Like the idea to me that we have staff who sit down and plunk out a phase 1 report and they're writing paragraphs and describing things. AI is going to be doing this for us, I think. So I'm curious to know how that's going to impact our industry too.
That's interesting. Hey, from personal experience, I took a write-up of a proposal I was working on. I ran it through AI, and it actually gave me some really good suggestions on how to make it a more effective proposal, make it clear for the reader and everything. So I don't know. All I can say is I think in a lot of ways, I and maybe lots of others are already using AI in a positive way, and that's what we want to do here. So let's see how it goes. It's a rapidly evolving tool. It's pretty exciting. So I'm sure that'll figure heavily in some of our upcoming courses and GeoPro Talks here. So I think this is quite amazing, this little word cloud. Let's go on the next question here. Was which activity would you consider? We're also looking at new formats at GeoPro on how to deliver our messages, how to interact with our audience, and all that kind of stuff. So what I did here was throw in some questions. Here's, for example, like do you think we should look at podcasts, new topics, take some old ones and make the podcasts available so that you don't actually have to have a computer in front of you and watch our bubble heads. You can listen to the topic on your own time while you're driving to work or something. That was one thought we had. So anyways, if you're on poll everywhere, please, I think each person is allowed to put in two answers of the 5 or 6 here. And we also have an other category. And I think the other is probably I say please add the chat. Hey Steve, thanks for pointing out chat doesn't even work for folks.
But
I
the
didn't know
Q&A
that.
works. The Q&A absolutely works.
I don't understand this. Anyways, that's another topic. Zoom, it's evolved over the years without my knowing what changed. But yes, please use the Q&A. It's good. So feel free to stick things in here, and let's just see where we're at here. So far, it looks like podcasts is actually coming up high. Perhaps there's some bias that was the first topic of choice, but it seems to be the winner so far. Panel discussions. That's something Pete and I have talked about, and we're kind of doing it here today. When we bring in experts on a particular topic, it's really I find it a very engaging way to share our experiences, and you can listen in and tune in. And with tools such as this poll everywhere, we can have a large audience and still get some of your input on some of the things we're talking about. So I think that's something we want to continue. Sorry, I'm just working to find my mouse. Interviews with experts. That was just a thought where we have, I guess, semi-formal interviews. Who's that guy at CBC Radio that does his science program every Saturday? He's always interviewing an expert every week.
So there's already that
Quirks and Quarks. Yeah.
That format's been around for a lot of years. It might be getting a little bit stale, but that's the kind of thing I was thinking of. We could have people bring them in.
So Quirks and Quarks or the debaters? Which do you want?
We're not doing the debaters. Good one, Pete. So thank you for your input here. Do we have any more comments from anybody here?
Yeah, there are a couple they're sort of related. One about discussions on reclamation certificates, which is, I think, just an Alberta-based phenomenon. It's from the Alberta Energy Regulator for reclamation of lands, and then similarly a comment about soil management, but from the perspective of reclaiming mines and old oil and gas sites, as opposed to the movement of contaminated soil, but the movement of soil for reclamation purposes.
So I
So
think
these
this is
are
really interesting.
related.
Yeah, so Steve, I mean, this is something I'd be interested in delving into, is where people's interests lie in terms of regulatory jurisdiction, because we're a regulatory driven industry. And there's so much that falls outside of BC MOE, right? Like there's other provinces have their own approaches, and Tanya, we've talked about this. The federal context is quite interesting as well. So I'm super interested in whether people need to, want to, are willing to contribute to discussions of the federal regulatory environment, comparisons between regions. I'm on the board of the CBN in the background. One of their most attended, most well-loved phenomena is a regulatory update. So if that type of stuff is important to this user base, let us know.
All right. Speaking of our user base, I think there's a slide that I kind of skipped over here. Let me see if I can find it. This one. I don't know if I spent much time on this. Did you notice that most of our audience in 2023 season, most are from Canada, obviously, and of those, probably most are BC. But we do most GeoPro Talks, we bring in quite a few folks from Alberta, and Ontario, and other provinces as well. And it's not just environmental consultants. We get quite a few environmental, I'll call them regulators. They're in the environmental industry with cities, municipalities, and provinces, and federal government too, which is kind of interesting. We've never tried to target the U.S. audience, but we've had quite a bit of participation from some folks in the U.S. and then the UK as well. So the beauty about recording these talks is that you can record them and watch them anytime, as per this one. You're welcome to look at the recording of this over the next 48 hours or so. It'll be free. I don't think we're going to be charging for this one. But in addition to the UK, we've had some interest from Greece, Sweden, and the other includes Australia and Brazil, because I looked at some of the numbers there. We're getting folks tuning in from there. So it's kind of interesting.
I think I'll put it out to the user group. I'd love to see presentations from completely different areas so we can cross-pollinate, right? Like that could be phenomenal. We are hitting time. I think Tanya actually had to drop. So Guy, I don't know if you have the big...
Oh, it's 10:30. It's the bottom of the hour.
Big push to come on, reach out to us personally on what would...
Yeah, we should wrap this up. So let's go. Thanks for your input, everybody. As I mentioned about becoming a member of GeoEnviroPro, if you become a personal member, a corporate member, it gives you unlimited access to all the GeoPro Talk recordings. It also gives you discounts. Here's the fees for becoming a member, by the way. Basic membership, it works out to $15 a month. I think it's annual, so it's $150 for the whole year. These are in Canadian dollars, by the way. Premium, this is up to 25 members, so probably a smallish consulting office or group in a regulatory agency, $525 a year, and unlimited members. So this is for larger firms or organizations, $1,000 a year. And as I mentioned, yep.
Yeah, that's underwriting the free Wednesday talks. It's underwriting keeping the library up. So, like, I've been asked whether this is a profit or for profit or not for profit, and I believe it is unintentionally a nonprofit. So,
sure, we'd all like to get rich one day, but it ain't going to be through this stuff.
No, this is what keeps the Wednesday
wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's not what I agreed to, guys.
Oh no, you're in. You have to keep the Wednesdays going. It's an article of faith.
And when we do put on courses, as a member, you get a 20% discount, which typically the discounts on a substantial course can be paid for by becoming a member. So check it out. And speaking of members, here's our corporate list of corporate members. I think most of these are current. There may be a couple that it may not be entirely accurate, but I think it's pretty current. So we don't have all their logos up, but we appreciate all these organizations for keeping us going. Without you, it would be a challenge, right? I mean, we don't really pay much to do this, but there are costs involved keeping this going. So thank you to our members, and then thank you to you, our audience, especially, and we look forward to seeing you next week. So there'll be something coming out on next week's GeoPro Talk in the next couple of days. Thanks for joining us, Steve, and thank you to Tanya, who had to leave. And See you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.